Late one evening, long after the city's offices had gone dark, a millionaire CEO stepped out of the glass doors of his high-rise building. The board meeting had dragged on for hours, filled with numbers, projections, and sharp disagreements. His tie felt tight around his neck, and his mind was heavy with decisions that could move markets but rarely touch lives. As his driver pulled the car closer, the CEO's eyes wandered across the nearly empty street, washed in the pale glow of streetlights. That was when he noticed her. At the far end of the bus stop sat a small girl, no more than 8 or 9 years old, curled up on a cold metal bench. She was fast asleep, her knees drawn to her chest as if trying to make herself smaller against the night air. Her shoes were scuffed and thin, clearly worn far beyond their time. A faded backpack was clutched tightly in her arms, not loosely like a child who felt safe, but firmly as though it held everything she owned. The CEO slowed his steps without realizing it. People passed that bus stop every day, he knew, yet something about this moment felt different. The city noise seemed to soften and the hum of traffic faded into the background. He saw not a headline or a statistic, but a child alone in a place meant only for waiting, not for sleeping. He hesitated. His schedule was precise, his life carefully managed. Stopping like this was inconvenient, unnecessary, even risky. Still, a quiet unease settled in his chest. Memories surfaced uninvited. His own childhood, the nights his mother worked late, the fear of being left behind. He pushed those thoughts aside, then found himself stepping closer instead. He cleared his throat gently, careful not to frighten her. "Hey," he said softly, keeping his voice calm. "Are you okay?" The girl stirred, blinking as she woke. Her eyes widened when she saw a tall stranger standing nearby, dressed in an expensive coat. Instinctively, she tightened her grip on the backpack. The CEO raised his hands slightly, a small gesture meant to show he meant no harm. "I'm sorry to wake you," he said, lowering his voice even more. "I just wanted to ask, are you alone?" She looked around the empty street, then back at him, unsure whether to answer. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the distant sound of a bus passing somewhere far away. In that moment, standing beneath the cold streetlight, the CEO understood something deeply unsettling. This child was not waiting for anyone. And he realized that walking away now would be the easiest choice, but not the right one. The girl woke with a small gasp, sitting upright as if she had trained herself to react quickly. Her eyes scanned the empty street before settling on the man standing a few steps away. Though startled, she did not scream or cry. Instead, she studied him carefully, the way someone far older than her years might. The city had taught her caution. "I didn't mean to scare you," the CEO said gently, crouching slightly so he would not tower over her. "I just saw you sleeping here and wanted to check if you're okay." She hesitated, then nodded once. Her voice was quiet but steady when she spoke. She explained that she had missed the last bus home. She had waited and waited, hoping another would come, but the night grew colder and the street emptier. She had nowhere else to go, so she sat down and hugged her backpack until sleep took over. The words hit him harder than he expected. Missed the last bus. Nowhere to go. These were phrases he associated with inconvenience, not survival. He glanced at the bus stop sign, the empty road, the darkness stretching in both directions. No child should be making choices like this alone. He stood slowly, his thoughts racing. This was not his world. His life ran on contracts, assistance, and secure environments. He had been taught to avoid complications, especially those that could bring risk or responsibility. Every sensible voice in his head told him to call the authorities and leave it at that. Yet something held him back. He looked at the girl again, at the way she kept her shoulders tense, ready to protect herself. He imagined her staying there all night, wrapped in thin clothes, waiting for morning. The idea unsettled him deeply. For the first time that day, the numbers from the boardroom felt meaningless. He took a breath, then spoke words that surprised even himself. "Come with me." Her eyes widened. "Where?" she asked cautiously. "Somewhere warm and safe," he replied, "just for tonight." He pulled out his phone and called his driver, giving clear instructions. When the car arrived, he opened the door himself, waiting patiently as the girl hesitated before climbing in. He made sure she sat in the back seat, wrapped in a clean blanket he kept for long drives. As the car moved through the quiet streets, the CEO watched the city pass by in silence. He felt the weight of responsibility settle on him, heavy but undeniable. This decision was not part of any plan, not approved by any board. But as he glanced at the girl, now resting but still clutching her backpack, he knew one thing with certainty. For once, he had chosen to act not as a CEO, but as a human being. The warmth of the room felt unfamiliar to the girl at first. She sat quietly at the table, her feet dangling above the floor, eyes moving cautiously as if the comfort around her might disappear at any moment. A simple meal was placed in front of her, nothing extravagant, just warm soup, bread, and a glass of juice. The CEO sat across from her, removing his coat, suddenly aware of how different their worlds were despite sharing the same table. "Take your time," he said gently. "You're safe here." She hesitated only a moment before beginning to eat. Hunger quickly overcame her caution, and as she relaxed, her shoulders slowly lowered. Silence filled the space between them, not awkward but thoughtful. The CEO waited, understanding that trust could not be rushed. After a while, he spoke softly. "Do you want to tell me about your mom?" The girl paused, spoon hovering midair, then she nodded. She explained that her mother worked nights cleaning offices and small shops. It wasn't easy, but it paid just enough to keep them going. A few weeks earlier, her mother had been injured at work, nothing dramatic, no headlines, just a fall, a twisted leg, and pain that made long shifts impossible. Since then, everything had become uncertain. "She told me to wait at the bus stop until she came," the girl said quietly. "But the bus didn't come and my phone has no battery." The CEO felt something tighten in his chest. This was not neglect or carelessness. This was survival stretched too thin. A single injury had pushed a struggling family to the edge, invisible to the city rushing past them every day. As the girl spoke, memories surfaced that he rarely allowed himself to revisit. He remembered his own childhood, the nights of uncertainty, the way one small setback could feel like the end of the world. He had escaped that life through luck, timing, and relentless effort. Not everyone did. He listened without interrupting, letting her finish. When she was done, he stood and turned away briefly, collecting his thoughts. Then he reached for his phone. He made calls, quiet, efficient, decisive. Within minutes, arrangements were underway. A doctor would see her mother first thing in the morning. Temporary support was organized. Safe transportation was planned. This was not charity in his mind, it was responsibility. He returned to the table and knelt so he was at the girl's eye level. "Your mom is going to get help," he said calmly, "and you won't have to handle things alone anymore." Her eyes filled, not with fear this time, but relief. She nodded, gripping her backpack less tightly than before. In that moment, the CEO understood a truth he had long ignored. Struggle rarely announces itself. It hides quietly, waiting at bus stops, hoping someone will notice. Weeks later, the city had returned to its familiar rhythm. Morning traffic filled the streets, buses arrived on schedule, and people hurried past one another with eyes fixed on their own destinations. On one quiet evening, the CEO found himself driving past the same bus stop where everything had begun. The bench was empty now, clean and unremarkable, just another place people waited without thinking. Yet for him, it no longer blended into the background. The girl was no longer there. She was back in school, her days structured by routines that children should have: classes, homework, laughter with classmates. Her mother was recovering steadily, receiving proper medical care without the constant fear of losing income. Support systems had been put in place not as a temporary gesture but as a bridge toward stability. Their lives were not suddenly perfect, but they were no longer balanced on the edge of uncertainty. The CEO returned to his demanding schedule, but something within him had shifted. Board meetings felt different now. When discussions turned to efficiency, labor costs, or restructuring, he found himself asking new questions about people, not just outcomes. He noticed details he once ignored: the exhaustion in an employee's eyes, the silence of someone afraid to speak up. His leadership, once defined by precision and control, began to include empathy and awareness. Colleagues remarked that he seemed more patient, more present. He listened longer. He interrupted less. Decisions were still firm, still strategic, but they carried a deeper sense of responsibility. He had learned that power, when used thoughtfully, could protect as much as it could profit. Late one night, alone in his office, he looked out at the city lights. Somewhere below, countless stories were unfolding, most unseen, some quietly breaking. He understood now that success had once insulated him from these realities. Comfort had made it easy to look away. One small decision had shattered that distance. He did not speak publicly about what had happened. There were no press releases, no charitable announcements bearing his name. The moment had not been about recognition, it had been about choice. As he gathered his things to leave, his phone buzzed with a short message from the girl's mother, thanking him again. He read it once, then set the phone down, feeling a calm he had rarely known. The bus stop was empty, but its lesson remained clear. Leadership was not proven only in boardrooms or balance sheets. Sometimes it began in quiet moments when no one was watching and the only measure of success was the willingness to see another human being and act.